Okay, that's that done. I'm hoping that should be a really nice surface. I've taped this off with packing tape, and okay, it's next day now, and that has cured up nicely. I came back a couple of hours later and I put some plastic wrap over the top. Very far there, so I'm going to have to put some more in around here afterwards, but it does form a nice shelf that I can press against, so I can tighten these screws up nicely now. Probably want to add a little bit more in here too after this again. See, this is not really built up as much as I need. Quite a lot of sanding, so pretty nice. I mean, it feels pretty nice here at least. Fill in this bit here and these bits as well, and fill in those. Okay, so that's made a fairly nice mounting platform for the bottom of the jet pump to go on. A little bit missing there. Okay, so I've tidied that up and it's looking pretty good now. The edges are nice and flush there, all the way, almost all the way around, except for just that little bit in the middle which is missing. Now, this is not supposed to be a watertight seal or anything, but it can only be a good thing to have it, you know, closely fitting, I would think. It would be a pity not to have that closed up as nice as the rest of it has been done. And also on the inside now, there's a near perfect fit along that edge and around here. So the next step is to fill in this rather large gap on the transom there. When I build up this area around here, I want to make sure that these two halves are going to meet in a perfectly aligned position, like they are now, pretty much. So what I've done is I made a couple of little spaces like this. This is just some of the leftover material from a couple of days ago from the side of this. Just broke that off, and it's nice and hard, but it's fairly easy to sand and shape and get into the perfect distance, which is 6mm. I've decided that's about as far as I need to get the screw in there, and it's about what I have already, I think. So one of them is going to sit in the top like that, where there's a gap, and on the bottom also this one is going to go on the bottom, where there's another gap, and then I'll be able to tighten the screws down here, nice and tight, and it's all going to be straight, I hope. I'm just cleaning up the back of this here, ready to put some resin on it, and I just uploaded the first video about this to YouTube, and there were a couple of comments about what kind of resin should be used. And according to my research, it's okay to use epoxy on polyester, but not the other way around, is what the general consensus seems to be. And what I've found in my experience so far with this top area is that the epoxy, I'm just using West Systems epoxy like I used for my planes, it sticks quite well to the bare fiberglass like that, and also to this, which I think is just the same as that but with no fibers in it, it's just the resin only. But it does not stick very well to this dark grey, which I think is some kind of gel coat, or to this, which is primer, I think. So that's why I'm sanding or grinding all the way back here to give myself a nice solid base to stick to, and I'm hoping that it goes as well as it has been going up there. So obviously the standard way to connect the servo to the control here is to use the push rod that came with the kit. But even though I spent quite a while fiddling around with various configurations of that, I just couldn't get it to work to my liking, and it just seems that the geometry's a bit off, and I'm starting to wonder if they've ever actually tried to put this into a boat at any time to test it. One thing that's immediately kind of strange is that this point here is not at 90 degrees to the pivot point, so pivot's there, right? So I would like it to be here, I guess, to match up with the servo a bit better. And it means that this point moves more to that direction than that direction throughout its range. And another problem is that it moves quite a lot sideways here, 12 millimeters side to side at this point, when you've only got an 8 millimeter hole inside there, at least if you want to use this aluminium fitting with the nice rubber boot that they gave you. So it wasn't a very comfortable fit, and in any of my trials, including, see I changed the length there for this side, nothing really seemed to work very well. I even made my own piece for this so that instead of the hole being here, it was actually back here. And all of my trials ended up being so close to this point here that you'd actually have to sort of cut a little bit in there to make it work nicely. I just didn't like it. So I'm going to completely forget about that, and I've decided to try making a pull-pull system like you would see in the tail surfaces of a large model plane, for example. So it would have a cable coming, one from each end here, that go through a hole in the transom and then out again to connection on either side of this tiller, I guess you'd call that piece, wouldn't you, for a boat? And I decided to do that with the same parts that you would use for a model plane, like this braided steel cable, the very thin steel cable. So I thought, well, I'm going to need a steel hole for that to go through. So I drilled out a hole in the middle of this bolt like that, M10 bolt, and I was going to put the steel cable through that, and it shouldn't wear down too much or anything. And then to seal that up, I saw a tip on RC Groups where you could use one of these ear plug things and squash it down, poke that in, and it would pretty much seal up the water. But then I realized that rather than using the steel cable, I could just use nylon fishing cable. And one reason to go that route is that when you put the steel cable through here and you put a bend in it like that, the steel, it wants to kind of keep the bend, and it doesn't sort of go around that corner very nicely. In a plane, you're mostly just pulling these cables in a straight line, so you don't get that too much. But here, I definitely want it to be pulling against the side of, like, the inside of that hole. So I decided to use nylon fishing cable, and then I wouldn't need the steel there. And in fact, I wouldn't really want the steel, just in case the steel cut through the nylon a bit too much. So I got some of these nylon bolts and nuts, and I did the same kind of thing here. So this is what it's going to look like. That's M10 again. Hole drilled out the middle, and was thinking I might have to use some lubrication in this, but when I'm pulling the cable here, it's actually pretty good. I think it's about right. I can sort of push it backwards and forwards, and it's not going to pull the earplug out. Whereas if I put some lubrication in there, I think it might sort of the earplug might tend to slip out, unless I was to stop it from coming out this side somehow like that. But anyway, I think that's going to work really nicely. And on the end of the cable, I will still have the same sort of adjusting things that you have for a plain pull-pull connection. And I've got some rubber washers to go on the bolts on the each side of that, which should seal it a little bit. We'll probably still need a bit of silicone sealant or something around it. And I used my CNC machine to make a tiller. I'm going to call this a tiller. I think it's a tiller. So that's going to sit on there. I made this out of aluminium. I would have made it out of some of this like thick G10 stuff if I had any sitting around, but I didn't really have any pieces that I could use. And I've been meaning to try using this aluminium. This is not the extruded aluminium angle or the aluminium channel that I get from the hardware store, which is pretty awful to machine. This is one of the offcuts that I got from a place that makes boats, so that's quite appropriate, isn't it? And when I tried machining this, man, it's really nice. It goes so nicely that I started pushing the machine to go faster and faster until I actually broke both of my end mills that I use for doing that. We're going to need a couple of other holes going through the hull, so I did the same thing here with a slightly smaller hole. It's 5mm this time, and I need 2 of those, and those are going to be for the cooling tube. So far, so good. Well, as you can see, the waterline is just above the halfway point of the nozzle, but that's with basically nothing in it, so there's no batteries and it doesn't even have the lid on it. So when that stuff's put in, it'll press down a little bit more. So I'm pretty sure that the pump shouldn't have any trouble priming, because that means that about half of the, even right now, half of the impeller should be underwater. And I think that's probably enough, but anyway, not too concerned about that. What I am a little bit more concerned about is the waterproof integrity of this earpiece, what do you call it? Earplug, little orange thing in there. So what I'm going to do now is, hoping that I can put enough weight in this to weigh it down to where the earplug goes underwater for a while, and I just want to see how much water, if any, is going to come in like that. Okay, I've added another 4.6 kilos of weight, and the waterline is now just on the upper edge of the earplug, and it's looking alright so far still. That's my payload. I'm thinking it'll be alright, because I'm also planning to make this all the way around here airtight as well, or watertight, whatever you like. So that should make it harder for water to come in when there's no other way for the air that it's replacing to get out, if you know what I mean. I have a little piece of tissue paper underneath that hole there, just to see if there's any water picked up by that. It seems to be completely dry so far. And I just realized that I forgot to put silicone around the top edge of that bolt there, so the only thing on the outside of the bolt that's stopping the water from coming in would be the rubber washer on this side. So that's good to know. I could even waterproof it a little bit more than it is right now. That was like almost no throttle. Just want to see if the water pipe thing is working. Okay, that's good. Just in case you missed that, let me zoom in there. That's about 10% throttle on 4S. So I don't think it's going to have any trouble with power. can't really do a whole lot more than that here. And that's the lowest possible throttle. Look at that. That's how much throttle. Just about nothing. Oh, that was maybe 30% throttle. So I think power-wise, it's not going to be a problem at all. Well, I did get a little bit of water on this tissue eventually. I had this other one down in the bottom of the keel. That's perfectly dry. So it's just this hole here which is a little bit suspect. Unfortunately, I can't tell whether it's coming in through the earplug part or from around the rubber washer on the outside, but like I said, I haven't siliconed this properly yet, so I'll do that, and that will at least remove that as a possibility. But in the normal running of things, it's not going to be carrying this much weight. It's going to be at least 2 kilos lighter, so this hole is not even going to be underwater for the most part anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it. See, it's about halfway underwater all the time here, and it actually didn't start leaking until I put the power on a bit there, and we were getting more splashing around here, so that could have had something to do with it. But overall, yeah, it's looking fairly okay. Okay, I put my current meter on there and just do a little test. Oh yeah, that's no problem. Priming, I mean. It's like it's just over halfway up the nozzle, but yet immediately you get full waterage out of it. That's the absolute minimum throttle. Oops. Oh, that's fine. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there for this video. I'll try it down there sometime. We're having pretty crappy weather lately, so I'm not going to do it right now, and obviously because the bulls are in there, and I think I'll just let them go into the next place before I go in there myself. Another reason is that just as I got excited about doing all this stuff, this horrible red algae kind of stuff showed up, and it's thick all over the place now, so I don't know about that getting into the jet pump. Might be okay. I'll have to go and take a closer look at it later. And another reason that I'm uploading this now without really showing a proper driving video is that somebody might be giving me some tips about something I could do better. So, yeah, have at it. Alright, anyway, until then, until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.